Hi, my name is Lillian Meeker. I am a COTA at the East Clinic currently, and this is my presentation on assistive technology. I have a couple learning objectives for this presentation, one of which is to kind of explain what assistive technology is, how to use it, and how to access it, what kind of grants you can get, and what kind of resources you can find here in Texas. On this slide, I just kind of have a little bit of information, the definition of what assistive technology is. It says, assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, software program, or product system that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of persons with disabilities. I think it's really important to remember that AT is just a tool to use to get to that final functional bit that you're looking for. There's a couple different types of assistive technology out there. First of which most of us are familiar with is AAC, Augmentative Alternative Communication. That's going to be your Dynavoxes, your Proloquo Go, your Accents, your Touch Chat, those kinds of things. Next is cognition and learning, sensory impairments, including vision and hearing, computer access, positioning and mobility, and also switch access, vehicle modification and transportation, recreation, sports, and leisure. In this first slide, I want to go over assistive technology for communication, low tech. You're going to have low tech, mid tech, and high tech for most of these categories. Low tech communication, AT, will consist of your partner assisted communication, your PEX boards, your communication boards, those kinds of things. You can usually make them. They're homemade. Mid-tech, you're going to do your platform communicators, your Big Macs, your Go Talks, those kinds of things. Big Macs are great. They're one message communicators. A lot of times I will set those up with kids when we're reading books that have, a lot of times I'll use Big Macs with books. So books that have repetitive phrases in them, like the pout pout fish. And then you can get your kid to engage with that book. So you read the book and then the repetitive phrase comes up and then they can hit that button and engage with it as well. AT for communication, high tech. So these are your big AAC devices, your iPads, like I said, the Accents, eye gaze devices, your touch chat, things like that. I would like to also say that I am not a speech pathologist. So if you are more interested in these things, or if you think your kid would benefit from any of these things, I would consult your speech path that you are working with. I know at ABA, Karina is great with these things. Here at East, Lauren and Tracy are both wonderful. I'm not super familiar with all the speech pathologists over at Maine anymore. I know BK is pretty good with some touch chat and LAMP, things like that. Cognitive and organization aids. So these are going to be smart devices, Chromebooks, Google Apps, extensions, Google Read and Write, smart pens, things like that. Also, there's Evernote, Google Calendar, voice typing. There's all different kinds of programs that you can learn about, look into, and possibly recommend to help keep, especially our older kiddos, a little more organized. AT for reading and writing, low tech. So these are also homemade adaptation. You can do all kinds of things to books to make them easier to turn and make them more accessible for kids who may not have the fine motor or dexterity to do that themselves. Continued for low tech, lamp boards, pencil grips, getting rid of some of the noise in pages, blocking off sentences, things like that. That's all considered AT as well. These are some homemade pencil grips, marker grips, things like that I've made when I was working in schools. We used a lot of this kind of stuff to allow our kids to be more accessible to their environment and their curriculum. There's also things like Bookshare, Snap and Read, Google Read and Write. I love Google Read and Write. I think it's a great program. Google Read and Write has speech to text, text to speech, text and picture dictionaries, word prediction, highlight collection, voice notes. It's able to simplify and summarize web pages, and it's just an extension that you can add onto your Chrome browser. AT for computer access. There is a lot of keyboards out there that are programmable, like IntelliKeys. It's a membrane-sensitive keyboard. There's keyboards that are not the QWERTY, but they're more like ABC. There's keyboards that are high contrast, more ergonomic. There's all kinds of keyboards out there, and mouses. This is adapted mouse technology. So this first one that you'll see here that has the two switches attached to it, each switch can be a left click and a right click, as well as that ball in the middle is a swivel. So it doesn't require quite as much fine motor dexterity. High tech. On this slide, you'll see the head mouse extreme, and that's more for kids who maybe have limited mobility of their upper extremities and have better mobility and better neck control, so they can use their head to point and click with their eyes. Dragon Naturally Speaking is a wonderful program, and then you've also got eye gaze technology for AAC users. AT for visual and hearing impairment, braille stickers for keyboard. This pen that you can see on here, you can place labels on things and use that pen to click the label, and then when you click it, it'll read to you what that label is. So it's great for like prescription medication. And then there's like an amplified phone. You can use magnifiers, digital voice recorders, talking calculators. There's so much out there to help our kids and adults with visual and hearing impairments. Continued, more AT for visual and hearing impairments, and this is more high-tech stuff, more programs looking at a higher price point for these kinds of things. AT for motor access. I think it's important to note that assistive technology can be used by all disciplines. It can be used by speech pathologists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. Switches can allow individuals to activate a desired action. So in physical therapy, if you need a kid to cross midline and seated, you want them to activate a toy, but they need to creep to do so. You can use these switch activated toys. They can be attached to computers, they can run communication devices, control toys, other battery operated devices such as fans and tape recorders. Switches can be operated by any consistent muscle movement, and that's important to know. You want consistency and accuracy, and so a hand placement may seem like a great place, but if your child is most consistent and more accurate with a knee, then that would be a better placement for that switch. Switches can allow access to all sorts of devices. Kids who may have learned helplessness, we want to teach these kids very young that switches can control their environment and teach them that they can be fun. A lot of parents talk about how they have bad experiences with switches because it's not fun for the kid. They don't want to sit there and hit a button over and over again to do the exact same action, so we've got to switch it up. More on the OT perspective is environmental controls and adaptations, high-low tables, desk risers, light switch extensions, those kinds of things just to make kids be able to access their environment more easily. Some of these things can be very difficult for some of our children. Alexa. How many of us have Alexa in our homes? I know I do. It makes my life significantly easier. We can teach our kids that they can access those things as well. More positioning and mobility things for our physical therapists. So I added some considerations in here. My previous background is in schools, and I think it's important to know some of these laws and some of these acts that our kids and our families are dealing with in schools, and to teach our families that they can advocate for these things, and the school system is responsible for helping to provide them if it's academically appropriate. So I just added some of the IDEA provisions in here. You can go through and read them if you would like. Obtaining assistive technology is the big question, right? Like, who has all this money to throw at these switches and these devices and these switch-operated toys? The state, the university does, and they're willing to share these things with us for free. You just go on and you can apply for it through the loan bank, and I've included the website here, and you can trial a device for up to 5 weeks. They will send it to you in a box. You will have it for 5 weeks, and then at the end of the 5 weeks, they have included the return label, and you just drop it off at a FedEx location. It's very easy. I've done it several times. I know Lauren Milner here at the East Clinic has also done it. So to obtain AT, I would start with kind of an assistive technology evaluation, not a formal evaluation, but you need to look at this kid and see, is this going to be worth it to them? Is it going to be worth it to their family? And is this something that is going to make their life easier, not harder? You're going to look at a trial period. Like I said, the university will loan it out for 5 weeks. You can look at loan banks and loaners from manufacturers. A lot of times you can reach out to these AAC manufacturers and get a loaner device. There's also public funding sources. Texas has some great funding sources that I have included in this presentation. The Texas Technology Access Program, that's the program through the university. They provide so much. They will educate you, provide you with information. Their loan library is absolutely free to use. They will provide tech assistance if you're having a hard time utilizing your device or something's not working quite right. You can just call them up. They're very nice people, and they will help you problem solve through that. They will help you create custom activities for your kid. You can say, hey, I've got this kid, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to get to that point. they'll help you, and they love doing it. There's a recycle reuse program, there's financing assistance, there's demonstration centers. They're very helpful over there. Here are the websites to access that information, reach out. Project Mend is local to San Antonio, and they help people get access to medical equipment and assistive technology grants. Here are some additional resources: Texas Parent to Parent, Mobility for Kids, and Inclusion in Texas. And then here are some resources for accessible instructional material. Bookshare, if you have a kid that has a vision impairment, such as a CVI, they can get a Bookshare account for free. Bookshare has, leisure books, but it also has textbooks for our older kids in high school. The National Library Service for the Blind and the Dyslexic, Learning Ally. Public libraries have Overdrive, which is an audio book rental system. Then you can use Google Play, iTunes, Gutenberg, Amazon, and Audible as well. So that's it. That's assistive technology, kind of in a very quick overlook on it. I encourage everybody to research it and look more into it. I think it's very interesting, and there's a lot of resources out there that can help our kids if we were more educated on these things.